Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on The Fly Season 8, and this will be my review and breakdown for The Fly Season 8, Episode 5, titled Armageddon Part 5, which is also the finale for this Armageddon event, and this is also the mid-season finale for The Fly Season 8, where we are then on a 3-month break until March 9th, where we will kick off with Episode 6, aka Interlude Part 2. But wow, guys, Armageddon has honestly been a blast. I had so much fun with this event and I really loved it. This season has not felt like The Flash at all, or shall I say, this event has not felt like The Flash that we've watched for the past couple of years now. And I'm saying this in a good way. We finally have some really good writing. We finally have a very cohesive story. Every character has something to do and they always have something to shine with. And we all have these great elements like built-in mysteries and reveals, which really gets me so intrigued and so hooked for what's to come. And I think it's safe to say that this is definitely hands down Eric Wallace's best graphic novel so far, and hopefully the back half of The Fly Season 8 can continue as strong as Armageddon did. But yeah, just giving you guys my quick initial thoughts on this episode, episode 5, before I go more in detail during this breakdown. I loved this episode. I wouldn't go as far to say that it was one of the best episodes of Armageddon because I don't think it was. I think episodes 2 and 4 for sure top it. I don't know about episode 3. This episode might slightly be better than episode 3. I have to go back and watch episode 3 to decide that, but I still really enjoyed this episode. It was still a really good episode and I definitely had a lot of enjoyment with it, but I wouldn't go as far to say that it was better than or as good as episode 2 and 4, which I would say is the best of this event. We had some great stuff such as Mia Queen coming back. It was just so great to see Catherine McNamara return for this role. She was definitely my most anticipated character out of all of the guest stars appearing for this event, and she did have a pretty interesting storyline in this episode. We did have some really intense scenes with the Reverse Flash. Tom Cavanagh just stole the show. He was honestly amazing. His scene with Caitlin and then right after with Barry, it was just so well done. You just see how evil this character is, and they just show it so well. I absolutely love it. Eobard Thawne, he's just so petty and so evil. I think this episode just perfectly shows why he's the best villain on the show. We had some very interesting twists taking place during this episode as well. We had one of the best fight scenes we have seen on The Flash, but also we do have the arrival of the longly awaited gold boots. They're finally here. There's just so much stuff to talk about, which I will get to in more detail during this breakdown. But for those who haven't seen the episode, spoiler alert, because this is the review and breakdown after all, so I'll be going over some major spoilers which you certainly wouldn't want to hear from me. So if you haven't seen the episode, go watch the episode and come back later for this review and breakdown. But for those who are staying, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. But yeah, this episode kicks off with Joe's perspective of the phone call scene during the end of episode 4, and we have Barry running into Joe's house and he just gives him a hug right away. I really love that. It's just great to see Joe back. Obviously Barry does go on to tell Joe about Reverse Flashpoint and that in this timeline Joe was actually dead, and I just really love this interaction between Barry and Joe in this opening scene. It was just great. But Damien Dark interrupts and he suspects that he was connected to the Time Stone, which is why he wasn't, getting erased from existence. But his daughter has not arrived yet, so there's definitely something wrong. And that does play a part during this episode as well. But we then head over to the Cortex in Star Labs where Barry tells Team Flash about Reverse Flashpoint as well, and they find out that Frost and Chilblain were married. Allegra does also ask about what about Chester and her, and Barry doesn't really know what to say because he wasn't really there during like the I love you scene, for example, during episode 4. He wasn't there for that, so he wouldn't really know. But I did really like the scene where Barry gives Chester the PED, and Chester was scared to do anything with it because he says that he doesn't want to create a Chester P point. I really loved that. But everyone's just proud and happy with Barry. It was just a really nice reunion with Team Flash, and I really liked it. But then we have Thawne invading CCPD and he tells the officers in like a very villainous way that he's not ready to die yet, and he goes on and shoots lightning at them. I do find it quite annoying that he no longer has that vibrating effect going on. It looked really cool and I wish they kept it with this version of the suit as well, because I really loved it. It was one of my favorite parts of the Reverse Flash, if you will. And it's sad to see it gone, but it was cool to see this new suit as well. But I wish they still kept that vibrating effect going on. But Thawne finishes lightning blasting the officers, and he basically just attacked them to lure the Flash into CCPD. But instead, we have Mia Queen, aka the Green Arrow, jumping down from the roof, and then we have this short fight scene. As I said before, it was really great to see Catherine McNamara return in this role as Mia Queen. But yeah, as I said, we have the Reverse Flash and Mia fighting each other for a little bit. But then we see that Thawne starts to fade from existence, and Thawne is about to put his hand out to phase and then obviously kill Mia, but Barry stops Thawne from doing so. And then we have Thawne obviously revealing that he used this to essentially lure Barry over here so that everybody could hear it, that he needs his help because he's getting erased from existence. What a Thawne thing to do. I really loved it, just to like get everyone's attention to see if Barry would actually save this villain or not. I really loved that. But we then head over to the Cortex, where Mia reveals that she's looking for something, but she accidentally followed Thawne's temporal energy, which led her to 2021. But yeah, we do find out that if Thawne dies, this time he's just gone for good. There's no coming back after this. And we do see this dark side of Mia, where Mia thinks that they should just kill Thawne off and not consider saving him, where she does show these hints of Oliver, which obviously would make sense, because for those who don't know, Mia is the daughter of Oliver Queen, aka the original Green Arrow, and Oliver is that type of character. He would kill when necessary, so to see Mia doing the same thing as well, it makes sense. But yeah, we have Mia then training to let off some steam while Iris comes back to talk to Mia, and Mia reveals that she was actually looking for William. So she's arrived to 2021 because she's looking for William. We do then have this Green Arrow and the Canaries flashbacks, and I'm guessing that they showed it just in case for those who have not watched the backdoor pilot, to just, give the audience an idea in regards to what's actually going on. So they showed this flashback of William going missing, and then we find out that Mia has actually been looking for William for 2 years, which was pretty interesting. Obviously last time she saw him, he was kidnapped. But Mia then reveals that this temporal energy signature at the crime scene led her to 2021, but every trail goes cold. It was a very well acted scene between Catherine McNamara and Candice Patton, and then Candice Patton Iris asks why Mia hasn't asked the help of Felicity, in which Mia just doesn't want to do it, and we do find out that she will kill if she has to. And as I said before, this would be exactly what her father would have done, so it's just great to see that resemblance between the two. And Iris tells Mia that when Oliver was killing, it was ruining his life, so she shouldn't follow down those same footsteps. And we do then have Mia reversing everything Iris said back at her, which does lead to Iris believing that they should actually get rid of Thawne and not save him. But we find out that Thawne will fade away in around 2 hours, according to Caitlin, and we get this very well acted and very intense scene between Caitlin and Thawne, where Thawne just reminds Caitlin of what she was planning to do in 2013 before Ronnie died, and how 8 years later she just couldn't move on, she's still in the same spot. I hope that this isn't them setting up Caitlin leaving the show, because we do know that Ronnie Raymond will be returning in some way for episode 11, so hopefully they do not bring Ronnie back so they could set up Caitlin leaving, because I just don't want that to happen. But Caitlin says that it's Thawne's turn to die, so yeah, she's moved on to the side where she thinks that they should kill Thawne off and get it over with. We do then have this very interesting scene taking place where Thawne reveals more of his origin story to Barry, and I found this really, really interesting and just so petty of Thawne. I absolutely love this scene, but essentially almost 2 centuries in the future, Thawne and Barry meet for the first time, and at this point Thawne has just finally discovered how to possess speed. And right before Thawne is about to present himself to the world, Barry shows up and saves these people in harm's way, and those were the people Thawne was going to save in order to present himself to the world. And Thawne just gets salty about this. He's like, oh, you took all the glory and you humiliated me. I love that. It was very well acted. It just shows how petty and evil Thawne is, and I just love it. That was when obviously Thawne knew that he had to get faster than Barry and become his arch enemy. And we find out that if Barry saves Thawne, Thawne will just continue to find ways to try and kill Barry, which pretty much makes Barry lean along the lines of, right, okay, you should die. I found that really funny where Barry says, okay, if I do save you, what will you do? And Thawne just goes like, oh, I'm just gonna continue my plan to kill you. I found that hilarious, and it was just such a Thawne thing to do, and I really loved it. But Despero then shows up to Barry and he reveals that he had been to the future and seen that Armageddon has actually been prevented, but saving Thawne could mean that Thawne could essentially cause another Armageddon if he wanted to, which is why Thawne needs to die so Armageddon 100% doesn't happen. So Despero does also need Thawne to die. But Team Flash discussed that they should let Thawne die, and the logical reason should have been to just let Thawne die. Like, Thawne went all out and said, right, if you save me, I'm just gonna work on my plan to kill you. He openly said that. And it is more logical that they should just let Thawne die, because if they don't, then he will just continue to mess with Barry's life and go after his loved ones. And as we know, Thawne has inflicted the most pain on OG Team Flash rather than the new members like Chester, Allegra, and Cecile. So I did find it pretty natural in regards to who sided where. And we have Joe obviously overhearing this, and Joe doesn't like the idea of letting Thawne die, which obviously it's very in character for Joe, and I really love this. He mentions like there's always another way, and as a cop you protect everyone regardless. If they're a criminal, you still protect them. If they're not, you still protect them. It was incredibly well acted by Jesse L. Martin. And Barry knows a way how to save Thawne, but he just didn't tell anyone, which does obviously trigger Joe, because Joe knew that Barry had the solution, but he still wanted to kill Thawne anyways. It was a very well acted scene. And to save Thawne, we find out that they need to take his speed away, just like what Jefferson Pierce did to Barry in episode 3. Now, I did have a slight issue with this plan because they didn't really mention the correlation between Thawne being erased from existence and him losing his speed. It doesn't make sense. How does getting your speed taken away have anything to do with you being erased from existence? Like, that doesn't make sense. So I wish that they found a better solution or like a better explanation in regards to how to save Thawne. But Despero will kill Thawne if he has to, because after this pep talk Joe gave him, Barry and Iris think that it's right that they should actually let Thawne live and save him. But here's the thing, right? They established that Thawne is this mastermind genius. So what if he already knew that losing his powers was the only way for him to live? And what if this has been his plan all along? What if he knows that he has to get his speed taken away, and then he knows that he's going to get his powers back eventually? Like, didn't Barry even think about that? That was another issue I had, but oh well. But yeah, Despero uses his mind controlling abilities to control Mia, and then we have that happening while Barry tells the team that he wants to save Thawne by removing his speed, and they mention that Thawne will go over to Argus once his speed is removed. But Despero interrupts, and Despero says that Thawne could recover his powers and bring about Armageddon, in which he's right. He is right. So saving Thawne is not the logical solution over here, but Barry doesn't want to stand down, so he goes on to fight Despero, while Frost and Allegra go to protect Thawne from Despero. And this is when we have Mia interrupting with the Canary Cry arrow, which was a cool Easter egg that they added, and then the power of Star Lab just shuts off. Everything is shut off besides Thawne's containment, which again, it wasn't very logical. How does all the power cut off and you just have Thawne's containment cell that's still closed? But yeah, Mia's mind controlled by Despero, and she goes on to attack Team Flash in the cortex, shooting Caitlin in the knee. But we do then have Iris managing to get through to Mia by making Mia remember William, and she essentially uses that as a strength to fight Despero's mind control, and she prevails. But Barry then realizes that Despero's origin as a heroic leader on Kalanor was a lie, and indeed, he was actually the villain. He's the opposite. So in reality, Despero was not this hero, but he was actually the one who killed to get what he wanted, which was a pretty cool twist. We knew that in some way that Despero had to be the villain, so I'm glad that they brought this reveal to make Despero finally like the main villain of this event. We then get one of the best fight scenes we've seen on the show in a while between Despero and the Flash, where we have Barry just creating like a bunch of speed mirages to attack Despero, and he circulates everywhere, throws lightning. I just love the use of Barry's abilities over here. And we do also have Despero using the Flame of Pytar on Barry, but Barry's able to block it and dodge it with like lightning and stuff. It was a very cool fight scene and I absolutely loved it. Visually, it was very pleasing to see, but the CGI was a bit dodgy, but again, it's a TV show and it's the best they could do, so I'm just gonna let that slide. But Despero is going to kill Thawne, in which Barry charges at Despero, but he's sent back to the Cortex. We then have Despero charging up at energy levels in the level of an atomic bomb, and there's a huge chance that Despero will wipe out the whole city just so Thawne doesn't live, in which Barry needs to think of a plan quickly or else Central City will pretty much be destroyed. He then mentions that he can harness the flame of Pytar because it's a normal flame with a vacuum and disperse it like that, but he needs a way to direct the energy into the atmosphere. Chester then uses the materials of the PED to make a new device for Barry. One where there's an awful lot of gold, and I know you guys already know what it is, but it's just really cool. I love the entrance with this. But Barry runs into Despero and we get the first look at the new gold boots, and they look amazing. It really completes the suit and I really love it. But Despero is about to destroy the city, but Barry's able to run around Despero and harness the energy, and he's able to stop him. Despero no longer has his connection to the flame of Pytar, in which he's really triggered about that, and he just vanishes into flames, claiming that he will be back and he will basically get revenge for doing that to him. Barry is immediately called back to Star Labs as there's literally like 30 seconds until the timeline resets, thus killing Thawne. So Barry then extracts the negative speed force from Thawne. Now, Thawne knows that the only way to save him is to lose his speed. He clearly says, my speed, and he stops for a second and says, I need more time. So my theory is that this was indeed his plan all along. Thawne knew that in order to be saved, he needed to get his speed taken away from him. But yeah, as the negative speed force exits Thawne's body, Thawne is now saved, but he is not happy because his speed is his life, and he claims that Barry took it away from him and he will regret this. Now, we know that this isn't the last that we're seeing of Thawne. We do know that he will be back in some way for the back half of the season, so clearly, this was part of his plan all along. He knew Barry was going to take his speed, and he knew this was the only way that he would survive, and he knows a way where he could get his speed back. He was just acting really mad about it so his plan could unfold exactly how he planned it to be. But we then have the Team Flash and the Mia celebration wrap-up party in which Damien Dark shows up, and we have Mia nearly killing Damien Dark because she wanted to get revenge for Laurel Lance. But Damien Dark is confused to why he hasn't been erased from existence yet, because at this point Nora should have been back already, in which we do obviously know that this is simply another timeline which has been created, which is pretty much why Damien Dark is alive and not Nora Dark. We then have this scene between Iris and Mia where Iris mentions that the Hosen has some symbols on it which matches a symbol from some very redacted document from Berlin. So yeah, that's a lead for Mia, and Mia mentions that she's going to go to Felicity to basically get her hacking skills to find where this is going to go. It did get me quite frustrated to see that this plot with Mia went nowhere. They still left it in the open and didn't really tie a bow on it, which I was expecting that they would do in this episode. But yeah, it was quite annoying, but it is what it is, I guess. I think they're just still leaving the doors open in case it gets picked up sometime in the future. But Joe sees Damien Dark and he thanks Damien Dark for helping Barry restore the timeline during episode 4. And then Dark hands Joe this time stone as a gift from father to father, so I'm very interested to see where this will go. But Damien Dark teleports into an alternate dimension. I'm guessing he went into the time stone. I'm not entirely sure, but that's just the theory. And then he obviously sees Nora Dark. But then Damien Dark replaces himself with Nora. They didn't really explain how they were able to do that, but yeah, it is what it is. Team Flash then see Nora Dark standing in the middle of the room. So I'm left wondering, in this new timeline, is Nora Dark not married with Ray Palmer? Because we do know that they've been married and they've been together. So if Nora Dark is dead, wouldn't that mean that Ray and her never got together in Legends of Tomorrow and then obviously got married together? That's pretty interesting, but yeah, they didn't really explain that as well. So that's another thing that I had issues with. They could have just done something very simple like, oh, where's Ray, to actually mention that they've been together before. But since that she didn't, I'm guessing that then they've never ended up together in this new timeline. But the episode ends with a photo of New Year's Eve 2014 of the CCPD crew, and it changes to include Bart and Nora, in which I laughed when I saw it. It was pretty hilarious. And yeah, this is it for episode 5, aka the mid-season finale for The Flash season 8, and then we will kick off in March 9 with episode 6, aka interlude part 2. So episode 6, 7, and 8 will be interlude part 2, and then we're gonna have the next graphic novel. But overall, I really enjoyed this episode. This whole Armageddon event has just been a blast, and I cannot wait to see what's in store for us going into the back half of the season. And overall, I'll give this episode an 8.5 out of 10. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to tell me in the comment section down below what you guys thought about the episode. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.